Hi, welcome to Money Management for Those Just Getting Started, where in this beginner's finance course, not only will you find out why it's crucial that you start controlling your money before it controls you, these lessons will also show you how to get more money in the bank and how to build a brighter financial future. My name is Cal Hislop, and I'll be your guide through this course. I have an MBA from the United States, have lived and worked in the USA and Asia, and have been a university instructor since 2007 for the second-ranked university in South Korea. And this is one of many crucial lessons I have compiled for you to help you become more successful and happier in life. By the end of this course, you will have your own budgeting spreadsheet and the ability to start controlling your own budget, a better understanding of how and where to save your money, and the ability to harness the power of compound interest, which will make your money grow exponentially. The ideal student for this course is anyone either starting out in university or in their careers and wants to take control of their finances. If you don't have a financial plan and you're not confident with how to make your money make more money, then this class is for you. So, start today. Hi, and welcome to our third lesson in our course. This core lesson is about your personal finances and how to control your money and not let money control you. I'd like to start off, as usual, our quote of the day, which is personal finance is 80% behavior and 20% knowledge. What does that mean? It means that you don't really need to know the details, the fundamentals necessarily of finance per se. However, you just need to know a few basics on how to behave, what to do in certain situations so that your money grows. This core lesson is going to start out as usual with our introduction and mystery question. Then we'll move on to why learn money management and why learn about how to control your personal finances. Next, we'll go on to personal budgeting. We'll talk about the core basics about how to budget, and I'll provide you a budget Excel spreadsheet so you can start the process and get a feel on how to actually create and use a budget for yourself. Then we'll talk about savings, your options for savings, and what strategy maybe you should take, which is of course up to you. Then we'll go into what I like to call an investing eye-opener. And as you might know, an eye-opener is something that gets you interested, and maybe there's a little bit of a wow factor, something that you didn't know. Hopefully something that will maybe motivate you to start saving and perhaps investing. And finally, we'll wrap things up with the mystery question answered. So, I'd like to begin by introducing you to a pretty famous book. It's called The Richest Man in Babylon. And if you look up here in the top left-hand corner, here it says more than 2 million books sold. That should give you an idea of the success of this particular book. And what I like about this book is that this book covers a series of short stories that take place in and around the city of Babylon, the ancient city of Babylon, which is considered the richest city in biblical history. The book teaches straightforward lessons that attempt to show that the secrets of wealth building are unchanging and remain still applicable today, even though they were once used in history. While none of the concepts are likely to be earth-shattering for you, they do encapsulate the fundamentals that are the basics to money management and personal finance. So the question that I want to ask you is, what do you think are some of the best ways to build your wealth? And what are you doing now? Or what have you been doing to control your personal assets, your personal income, and build wealth for the future? One of the most interesting sections of this book talks about what are considered the 5 rules of gold. And we'll get into all 5 of these at the end of this core lesson. But I want to start by introducing rule number 1, which is called pay yourself first. And I'm curious, can you guess what pay yourself first means? Keep that in mind as we go throughout the lesson. Try to answer that question as we progress. And you'll notice around the midsection of this core lesson, I'll bring up the first rule of pay yourself first and explain what it actually is. Keep in mind, what could pay yourself first actually mean? And do you think you've done that or are doing it? And what do you think might be the other 4 rules of gold? Okay, with that in mind, let's go ahead and go on to the next section. Why should you be interested in personal finances and money management? So, why should money management and personal finances be interesting to you? Well, have you ever questioned, why doesn't university teach money management? And why usually at home do parents not teach the basics and fundamentals and or the details, of course, of personal finances? This is an interesting question to ask. Have you learned any particular classes on personal finance in university or high school or in school generally? And how about your parents? Have they really sat down and talked to you about how to control your personal finances for the future? Well, if not, why not? It's so important, isn't it? Well, schools tend to mostly teach subjects related to students' majors. Schools also seem to think that this is a personal choice and the responsibility of the parents. That's a mistake. Homes either don't know what to teach, don't take the time to teach, or feel that the topic of money is taboo. That's also a mistake. Whatever the reasons are, it is still undeniable that being able to manage personal finances is crucial to a person's success. So, how does learning money management and personal finance help you? Number 1, reduce stress and conflict. Struggling to pay the bills, not having enough money at the end of the month, not having enough money to pay for the things you need and want can really be stressful. And once you're married, stressing out about money can lead to even more problems with your relationship. Married couples have even reported that the number 1 cause of arguments, believe it or not, is money. People even get divorced because of money issues. Furthermore, financial problems can lead to health problems such as migraine headaches, cardiovascular disease, and insomnia. Getting control of your finances and creating a surplus rather than a shortage of money can potentially prevent these problems. So, wouldn't you want to prevent these problems and reduce stress and conflict in your life? And how about a home? Homes are huge expenses, and the vast majority of people need to get a loan in order to purchase a house or apartment. Getting a loan requires a down payment. This means you must have already had a fairly large amount of cash ready to give the bank in order to get that loan for your home. The number is typically over 5%. You do the math. In addition to the loan, there are several other fees that are included too. So add another 5% to that number. Minimize debt. One of your goals should be to have as little debt as possible. Debt is money that you must pay someone else, usually on a monthly basis. So what could these include? Student loans, a home mortgage, a car, credit card debt. If you have too much debt, then it can be impossible to save money and you can become even greater in debt. This is a horrible situation to be in. And imagine if you're in this situation and an emergency happens. There's some unexpected event. How are you going to pay for it? Experts say that you should have around $1,000 minimum saved specifically for these times, because it's not that if they'll happen, it's when they're going to happen. So be ready for emergencies. Yes, it's not a matter, as I just said, if an emergency is going to happen. It's a matter of when one will happen. You need to be ready with that $1,000. Maybe you should add this to your future financial goal on your goals worksheet. What do you think? Emergencies may include sickness in the family where you need to help, or you may need to stay in the hospital for your own illness, or you could get in a car accident. So there are dozens of possibilities that you want to be prepared for. And be ready for opportunities when they arise. Opportunities come and go, but not that often. If you're not ready or able to take advantage of a great opportunity when it comes, then you may never see that opportunity come again. This could be an amazing investment opportunity. Perhaps the home of your dreams is available at a fantastic price, but only for a short time. Will you be able to buy? It's hard to predict what opportunities may present themselves, but you want to be ready when they do. If you miss that opportunity, then you're stuck where you are instead of going forward toward a better life. Make more money with your money. One of the amazing things about having money is that your savings and investments can make you even more money. Have you ever heard the phrase, "It takes money to make money"? Yeah, probably you have. Well, it's true in many ways. The cash you save can be used as your own little employees who work hard for you to create more cash for you. And then that builds upon itself. That's the beauty of investing. It's a real benefit to learn the basics of investing, stocks, bonds, mutual funds, and investment funds. So get ready to make your money work for you. Have your money help you live a happier life. And having control of your money will help you live a happier and more fulfilling life. There are many ingredients to happiness, but being rich and having money really isn't one of those. However, having enough money to prevent problems, enough to build a meaningful life and relationship with family and friends, enough to take care of others and help family, enough to grab opportunities when they come, and enough to grow in life are some of the ingredients to a happy life. And finally, financial independence. Financial independence is what everyone looks for. Does this mean be rich? Well, the true meaning is having enough money to live comfortably, safely, and have enough to get the things that you want. To have enough money to be free, let's say. This can mean being able to take a vacation when and where you want, being able to help family members when needed, being able to start a business, being able to leave your job and find a better one if needed, and not to worry about the costs while making that transition, being able to invest in opportunities like we just mentioned, having enough money and future income to easily retire when it's time. So, why learn personal finance? Why learn money management? It's simple, and there are a lot of good reasons. Number one, reduce stress and conflict. Two, be able to afford the home that you want. Three, minimize, hopefully eliminate any debt. Be ready for emergencies because you know they're going to happen eventually. Take advantage of opportunities. Don't let opportunities pass you by. Make more money. Use your money to put into investments so that builds upon itself and makes even more money for you. Live a happier life because you don't need to be rich to be happy, but you do need to have the basics and be prepared for opportunities and emergencies. And finally, to be financially independent, to be free. So, having said these 8 parts on why to learn money management, let's go on to our next section. So, our next section in personal finance and money management is creating a personal budget for yourself. Now, you may or may not have already used a personal budget, and you may or may not already know how to, but if you haven't been using one, it's really important that you start now, because using a personal budget on a regular basis really is the first step to gaining control on your personal finances. So this really sets the foundation for your own personal finance. But before we begin, there are 2 worksheets that you're going to need to use that hopefully you've already completed prior to this lesson. Do you remember lesson number 1 on goal setting? If you can get out your worksheet titled Goal Setting Worksheet, I'd like you to identify any economic or financial goals that are on that worksheet. So scroll through the worksheet and circle any of your goals that happen to be money related. Then I'd like you to consider, are there any additional financial goals that maybe have popped up in your mind that you haven't thought about since the previous goal setting lesson? If so, write a couple quick notes on this goal worksheet. And make sure that you classify any additions into 1, 3, 5, or 10-year goal projections. Next, Go ahead and get out some paper and pen. We're going to need to write a few things down. First, let's go over three particular things I want you to consider. Quickly, those are: what are your current sources of income? You probably have one, but who knows, you maybe have more than one. What are your spending habits? What do you like to spend your money on these days? And let's take a general look at all of your expenses, including necessities and including just the things that you like to spend money on for an entire month's period. First of all, what are your current sources of income? That just means what money is going into your pocket. List those different sources on a piece of paper now. Do you have a part-time job? Do you have a full-time job? Do you get any money from parents or from any other source? And along with those sources, list the monthly amount that you get from each. Now, if it varies month to month, go ahead and put down an average. Next, I'd like you to get out your weekly expense tracker. Up here, I asked you to track yourself over any given week. I wanted you to put in the expenses that you have incurred for each day of the week, Monday through Sunday. Get that out and let's take a look at it. As you scroll through it, do you notice any patterns of spending? Which expenses do you really need? Which expenses would you consider essential that you really can't do without? Take a moment, look at those expenses, and make a note somewhere. You can either make a note on the right or left, but identify those clearly, those expenses that are necessary. What should be left over or what you would consider unnecessary. Now, take a close look at those considerably unnecessary expenses. How much do you really need those? Do you think that you could possibly do without those expenses or minimize them in some way? That should be one of your goals now, is to somehow minimize or just completely get rid of these unnecessary expenses. Although, of course, you want to keep some, because what's the fun in life without having some fun, right? Next, I want you to be able to identify and list on that piece of paper all of your expenses for a month. In essence, this is the money out of your pocket. Try to list each one as best possible, and don't worry, later you might think of a few more and just add them to your list. Include the items that are on your weekly expense tracker and any other items that are not on there, because of course you probably have more expenses that you didn't incur over that last week. By now, you should have a pretty clear idea of all of your sources of income and a pretty clear idea of all of your expenses for any given month. Next, what I want you to do is get out the Excel spreadsheet that I've supplied for you. It's your personal monthly budget Excel spreadsheet. Looks something like this. What I want you to do is take the time and fill this out as best possible. Put in your income, list as many expenses as you possibly can. Now, if there are any line items on the left that aren't there but you want to put in, go ahead, change the Excel spreadsheet. And finally, at the bottom, we're going to see what's the difference between your income and your expenses, and what's the difference between your expectations and your actual spending. Let's do some of this together so you better understand this particular worksheet. I've opened up my copy of my personal monthly budget. Now it's blank because I want to go ahead with you and try and fill in some of the categories. Let's work with income first. Now, assuming that you're a university student with a part-time job, just for demonstration purposes, let's assume that you're making about $30,000 a year from a part-time job. You're working hard to pay your bills and save money. So that's about $2,500 per month. Do you get any money from your parents? Let's say you're lucky and you get $500 per month. Congratulations. Now, I'm not going to put anything else in here. If this applies to you, go ahead and fill in these sources of income for yourself. we're going to assume now that this particular person is making $3,000 per month. Not bad, especially for a student. What about expenses? Maybe you don't need to pay for tuition. Perhaps you're lucky enough to have a parent pay for it. Let's go down to some obvious stuff. Maybe you need to pay rent. Let's say $300 for rent, and you have credit card payments. Who doesn't? Let's do another $300 for credit cards. Food, $200 per month. Loan payments, maybe not. Computer equipment, dorm, books, maybe not. Let's see. Let's go down to your phone bill. How about $50 a month? Maybe you have a car. Let's say $300 a month. Fuel, $50 a month. Unhealthy habits, entertainment. Let's have a little bit of fun. Let's go $100 a month. And unhealthy habits, I don't know what those are. It depends on you. Let's say $100 a month. Maybe you need to buy a few gifts every once in a while, $50 a month. You want to buy some clothes. Let's do $50 a month. Laundry, $25 a month. And savings. Now, this is important. You want to put money into savings. It's crucial. We'll talk about that pretty soon. So let's say $200 a month. Okay, let's go back up. Maybe we have a few more expenses to make this a little more realistic. Let's say school supplies, $50 a month. Groceries, $100 a month. Cleaning supplies, among other things, $50 a month. Utilities, $100 a month. Internet, $50 a month. Travel, who knows where, $100 a month. $25 a month on average. Car repairs, let's put in, just in case for emergencies, $25 a month. You're going to get sick every once in a while. Let's just say $25 a month. And let's leave it at that. So if we compare our total income, $3,000 coming into our pockets, and then our expenses, our projected expenses, $2,250 per month, we end up with extra money, about $750 per month. This is our projected income. This is our budget. Now, realistic or unrealistic, that will depend on your own situation. Now that you have your projected amount, you'll go through the actual month and put down how much did you actually make. Maybe you didn't get to work as much. Maybe there are a few issues. $2,000. But we can still depend on good old mom and dad, right? So let's put in $500. Now we're at $2,500 is the actual amount we made for, let's say this was in January. But your expenses really could change quite easily from your expected amounts. What can we do? Maybe housing rent is going to stay the same. Credit card payments, maybe you had to purchase something bigger, so let's say $400. Maybe you're hungrier than usual in the month of January and you did extra stuff. You spent a little extra money. You spent more in school supplies. Groceries was more than expected. Housing supplies was about the same. Utilities went up because it's cold. You had to put on the heat, $150. Your phone bill, you talked a lot. Let's say $70. Internet, it's about the same. You traveled a little bit more because it's the holidays. Let's say $250. That's a lot. Car payment is still the same. Car insurance is the same. Car repairs, maybe you had an issue with your tires. You had to put down some extra money on a new set of tires. $500. Oh no, that's that emergency I was talking about earlier. Fuel, let's say because you're traveling a little bit more, let's say it's $100. Entertainment was about the same. Unhealthy habits, about the same, maybe. Medicine, you're lucky. You felt great. You didn't have to buy any medicine, no doctor visits. Gifts, it's the holidays, a little bit more. Clothing, $0. You didn't spend any because you're already buying other people's gifts. Laundry, you got to stay clean. Let's say about the same. And we always got to put in at least $200. So now Comparing our projected to our actual amount, now we're $720 in the hole. We spent too much. Maybe we have credit card debt. This is the purpose of creating a budget. As you create a budget, you're going to be able to better control your expenses based on your expectation of income. That way, you don't get deeper into debt and you're still able to transfer money to your savings and investments. So this is a really crucial spreadsheet to have. Make sure that you take the time to understand it. It won't take you very long at all, but take the time to put in the right line items for your income and your expenses so that you can have better control over your personal finances. So now that you have a better idea of your income and your expenses, fill out this personal monthly budget and continue to do so on a regular basis. Go ahead and make this homework for yourself. You'll appreciate that you took the time and effort to do so. So, to recap this particular lesson, we've been able to identify your economic goals. You were able to identify money going in and going out of your pocket. You're able to identify spending habits and things that are necessary and unnecessary. You can now adjust your expenses to reflect your economic goals. You can minimize unnecessary expenses. And most importantly, you're able to control all of this through your own personal budget. So that does it for this lesson. Let's get ready for the next one, saving strategy. Okay, the next section in this particular core lesson on personal finance is saving strategy. What should you be doing with the money that you're saving? And what do you think is the best approach to go about saving your money? So the first question I have for you is, how much should you be saving? And how often do you think you should do it? Once a month, every paycheck, once a year? I'd like to introduce you to a quote that I thought had a fair amount of impact when I first read it. And it goes like this: poor people spend their money and save what is left. Rich people save their money and spend what is left. Now, it might seem obvious that this is an important thing to do. It's unfortunate that people will go ahead and spend their money and then won't really consider saving until they've gone through all of their expenses. And quite often, there's nothing really left over, because people tend to live or spend at their means or above their means, which means people will usually spend as much money as they have, or even spend more money than they have, which is through the use of credit cards. However, what you really want to be doing is saving money first, and then using your personal budget, you'll be able to spend what is left over on the necessary items, and then possibly on other items that are more for fun and entertainment. So take the advice of the rich. You want to save your money first and then spend what's left over. So let's go back to the 5 rules of gold in the book, The Richest Man in Babylon. Earlier, I asked you to try and guess, what does pay yourself first really mean? The first law out of the 5 rules of gold goes like this: save no less than 10% of your income. Put it away before you pay any expense. What that means is on payday, the very moment, the very day that you get paid from your job, take 10% minimum and put it into a savings account, or put it somewhere that you will not touch it, or better yet, cannot touch it. Make note, do not ever pay bills or other expenses first. It might seem impossible to do for some people because they think they can't afford it. However, everyone is able to fairly easily adjust to living with a little less each month, and you will be so happy to see how quickly your savings increase as the months progress. Kind of an obvious answer to this question: when should you start saving 10% or more? When should you start paying yourself first? All right, give yourself a round of applause. You probably guessed now is the best time to start. Now that you have a clear understanding of the first rule of gold, pay yourself first, what do you think you should do? How about take a moment, look at your goals worksheet, and adjust any financial goals. Perhaps adjust your savings goals. And now that you know how to use a personal budget and you have an Excel spreadsheet, maybe keep in mind the line item at the bottom for personal savings. How much money are you going to contribute to your savings? And next, what should you do with the money you save? Actually, this is a question that we're going to answer in our next section, but I want you to start thinking of this. What would you do with the money that you save? Should you put it in a piggy bank? Should you put it in a savings account? Should you invest? We'll answer that question soon. To recap our savings strategy lesson, now we know more of the importance of having a savings strategy. Remember, don't do what the poor do. Do what the rich do. Save first, spend later. Take heed of the first rule of gold. Pay yourself first. And how much? What's the minimum you should pay yourself first? Each time you get income, make sure it's a minimum of 10%. Okay, that wraps things up. Let's get ready for the next lesson, Investing Eye Opener. Welcome to the next section, Investing Eye Opener. So previously I asked you a question. What should you do with the money you save? Would you keep your money in a piggy bank? Under your mattress? In a bank? In the stock market? What would you do? What about investing? Do you already have any particular investments? And what have you invested in? Before we go further with investing, I have a question for you. It's referred to as the magic penny. Let's say you have a choice. Two choices, actually. Choice number one is just take $2 million. Imagine right now you could take $2 million and do with it as you choose. Or take the magic penny. And this magic penny does something special. What it does is it doubles its value every day for 30 days. Well, of course, there's got to be a catch, right? Why would we call it the magic penny? Well, if we took that penny and doubled it every day for 30 days, the value would come out to be over $10.7 million. Definitely better than $2 million, right? This example is an illustration of something called compound interest. Wikipedia defines compound interest as the addition of interest to the principal sum of a loan or deposit, or in other words, interest on interest, which means if you invest money into something, you expect a rate of return, let's say 5%. As time goes by and you make interest on your investment, you also start to make interest on that interest, and it just gets bigger and bigger as time goes by. Well, Warren Buffett, with an estimated net worth of over $76 billion, someone who is unquestionably one of the most successful investors in history, said that his wealth comes from a combination of three things: living in America, some lucky genes, and compound interest. Sure, America is great because it's considered the land of opportunity. And yeah, DNA has something to say. His personality is very investment driven. But number three, what I want you to focus on is compound interest. It's compound interest that made his money make money. And Albert Einstein had something to say about compound interest too. He said it's the eighth wonder of the world. And more specifically, and take note, quote, "He who understands it earns it. He who doesn't pays it." If you don't take advantage of investment opportunities, you may end up paying interest instead of earning it. Let's go through one more scenario, and I really quite like this one. Let's suppose that there are two friends who just graduated high school and have entered a university. We'll call them Jake and Katie, about 19 years old each. Although friends, they decide to take two different paths regarding finance. Katie decides she'll get a part-time job and invest about $2,000 every year from the age of 19 to 26, earning a compound interest rate of about 12%. Once she's 26, she stops completely, and her investment continues to make money, continues to make interest, and compounds. On the other hand, we have Jake. Jake decides not to invest anything at all. Instead, he wants to enjoy his time in university. After he graduates, he gets a job. Then he decides to start investing. At the age of 27, he does the same thing as Katie did. He invests $2,000 a year, and continues to do that for another 39 years. Once Jake and Katie are retirement age around 66, they reap the rewards of their investment. At this point, Jake has invested a total of $78,000 over a 39-year period. And Katie, on the other hand, invested a total of $16,000 over an 8-year period, although she did start 7 years earlier. Once they're 66 years old, what do you think the difference is between the gains they've made through these investments? Katie has made a whopping $2.28 million at this point. How about Jake? Only $1.5 million. That's a stark contrast. And that's the power of compound interest. And in order to understand a little bit more about compound interest, you want to understand the two types of interest. There's simple and compound. And both are available in investments. Simple interest is a fixed rate. Let's say you have $100 and 8% interest. No matter what, over time, you're going to make $8 on that investment every year. However, with compound interest, you'll make $8 the first year, and then you'll make another 8% on the $108 you had the second year, and it continues to grow. So that's a no-brainer, right? You want to go with compound interest. To make it a little clearer, let's look at a few examples between simple interest and compound interest. And here, we're going to invest $10,000 in simple interest and $10,000 in compound interest. Both of these at the same rate of 8%. Here, in year one, from $10,000, we get $800 return with $10,800 at the end of year one. We have the same thing over here in the first year with compound interest. But beginning in year two, things start to change. The difference is, although in simple interest, we still get the same rate of return, 800, 800, 800 every year. What changes is we're making interest on our interest with compound interest. Notice the first year's return is $800, the second $864, then $933, then $1,008, and it just continues. Imagine doing that over 20 or 30 years. Imagine continually reinvesting money. So where should you invest? The bank, the stock market? Well, the two most common places to put your money that have compound interest are banks and the stock market. Which one do you think is considered the best option? In the bank, you have other options such as checkings account, savings account, money market account, and certificates of deposit. Respectively, usually a checking account will be 0.05%, as will a savings account. Money market is twice that at 1%, and a certificate of deposit is a full 1%. Not bad, right? Well, let's look at the stock market. On average, in America at least, the stock market returns 8 to 10% per year. However, banks do guarantee these interest rates. So if you really want to play it safe, put your money in the bank. However, the stock market may have an average 8 to 10% per year return, but it's not guaranteed. It really depends on the economy and how things are going. However, over the long term, the chances are you'll get that 8 to 10% return. So, bank or stock market? Well, I'll tell you what, the rich don't keep their money in the bank. There's a calculation, or let's say there's a financial trick called the rule of 72. And this helps you understand the difference between 3%, 4%, 5% return, because there's just sort of numbers, right? Well, the rule helps you understand how long it's going to take for your money to double with compound interest. And it's a simple equation. Simply divide 72 by the interest rate. For example, if the interest rate is 8, it's 72 divided by 8. So, where to invest? Bank or stock market? Well, let's take another look at the checkings, savings, money market, and certificates of deposit. How long will it take for you to double your money? Checkings and savings account? 1,440 years. That's kind of a long time. Take care of yourself. Money market account, 720 years. Still, huge amount of time. Certificate of deposit, 72 years. You might make it long enough to see your money double, but what about the stock market? Let's take the 8%. Divide 72 by 8, and how many years will it take? Only 9 years to double your money. Again, what would you choose? So I have the same question for you as earlier. When should you start investing? Yes, you guessed it. Right now, take your money, put it into something that you trust, that you've done your homework, and that earns compound interest. Now, I'm not here to give you advice on exactly where to put your money, so I suggest do a little research. You can find indexes, mutual funds, other investments that earn compound interest and are considered relatively safe. So the next time you have some free time, Google investments that earn compound interest and go from there. So to recap this lesson, Investing Eye Opener, we took a look at should you save or invest. Invest is probably the wisest choice. We explained the difference between compound interest and simple interest. Of course, compound is the way to go. We looked at the differences of compound interest in banks and the stock market. We took a look at the rule of 72. This simple trick, this simple equation will help you understand how long it should take for you to double your money. And we answered the question, when should you start investing? Now. Great, that's it for this lesson. Let's get ready for the final section of this core lesson, mystery question answered. Here we are at the end of our core lesson on personal finance, and we're going to end as usual with mystery question answered. Now, if you'll recall, I asked you earlier to think about the 5 rules of gold. I gave you the first, but I was curious if you could guess any of the other 4. And I'm sure you remember that the first rule of gold was pay yourself first. Here, a person should save at least 10% of their income for the future, which means every time you get paid, every time you get a check from your job, take 10% minimum and put it into savings or invest it. So what are the other 4? Well, number 2 is invest your money in a way that your money will simply make more money. We just talked about this. Can you guess? Compound interest. Here, you put your money into an investment that earns compound interest, and the money you make on interest will start making interest. You have a snowball effect, essentially. Number 3, only take investment advice from those considered professionals in the field. I'm not a financial professional. However, the rules of gold here are not mine, but those that have been passed down over the years by professionals. These rules are timeless. And when it comes to the point where you're seriously thinking about investing in something, don't rely on advice from family. Don't rely on advice from friends. It's good to listen to them. But when it comes down to actually making a decision, unless your family or friends are professionals, seek out the advice of a financial professional. Now, the last 2 rules are things not to do. Number 4, do not invest in areas that you're not familiar with or not approved by a professional in the field. If you don't understand the tech industry, maybe don't invest in it. If you don't understand the oil and gas industry, maybe don't invest in it unless you do your homework. Perhaps a good example of something that you are familiar with is Coca-Cola. The world is familiar with Coca-Cola products, and these products probably aren't going anywhere, so they seem to be a pretty safe bet. Maybe take some time and learn more about Coca-Cola Company. And number 5, never invest in something that promises incredible returns far greater than average. And never invest in something when pressured to do so by someone else. The first thing that comes to mind here for me is Bitcoin. Everybody was jumping on the bandwagon, expecting to make huge gains while watching Bitcoin continuously rise. And what happened? Boom, bust. Most people who invested in Bitcoin and other similar things probably were not obeying rules 4 and 5. Remember the old saying, if it seems too good to be true, it probably is. Guard your money and only put it into investments that you're comfortable with and have a decent level of understanding about. So keep in mind these 5 rules of gold. If you follow these throughout the rest of your lifetime, you're definitely well on your way toward building wealth. And don't forget, become a teacher. Take what you've learned here today and pass it along to family and friends. Perhaps help someone with their personal budget. Go over the Excel file with them. Teach someone about compound interest. Tell someone the story about Jake and Katie and the difference from investing when you're 19 compared to 27 regarding compound interest. Have fun. Spark a conversation on investing in general. Who knows? As you become the teacher, you might also learn more. And I would very much appreciate it if you would give this course a rating. That way you'll be helping others too. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, I really hope that what you learned in this lesson is of value to you and that you're able to take it and build your wealth as the years progress. Don't forget to continually update your goal sheet and continually update your budget. Take care and see you for the next lesson.